Yeah, got it.
Okay. So in this presentation, we shall talk about a Hilbert-Smith operator.
Can you zoom your file? It's very small.
Zoom. Okay.
Yeah, it looks very small. I mean, it's not full screen, I think.
It's full screen.
Well, it doesn't. I don't see it in full screen. Anyway, I think if the whole video is in full screen, one can read it. But from a mobile or something, it's not possible, I think.
Okay. Internet is terribly.
But you removed it.
No, I did not remove the internet, but suddenly. Sorry. I'm sharing in a full screen mode. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it will be visible.
Okay. Okay, this is bigger. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm starting. So we shall talk about Hilbert-Smith operator, and first we shall define what is Hilbert-Smith operator. Then we will prove some of its properties, and we'll see its relation with compact operator. And finally, we give a characterization of Hilbert-Smith operator on L2 of AB in terms of integral operator, and that is the plan of the talk. So the definition, so start with the definition. We assume that H is a separable Hilbert space. A operator T on H, a bounded linear operator, is said to be Hilbert-Smith if there exists an orthonormal basis such that this summation T of EI square, the norm of this square, is finite. And for this definition, we assume if there is existence of at least one orthonormal basis. And later we see that this is independent of the orthonormal basis. So now we first observe that if H is a finite dimensional space, then if by Gram-Schmidt orthonormalization, we can always find an orthonormal basis for H, and then always this summation will be finite. So on finite dimensional space, every operator is Hilbert-Smith operator. So we can assume that H is infinite dimensional separable Hilbert space from now on. Now we prove a theorem which justifies our claim that we can actually take any we can define the Hilbert-Smith operator with respect to any orthonormal basis. For this, we prove that if we take any two orthonormal bases EI and FJ, then this quantity norm TI square is same as norm TFJ square, and which is also same as these two quantities T star of FJ square and this summation of mod of this one. And we will prove this theorem first, then we observe some remark. So to prove this, we start. Okay, so first we observe that if is for each j, if we take the orthonormal basis fi family, then with respect to that family, we can write tfj as this in this expression, and then we can by applying Parseval's theorem, we obtain this form tfj square equal to sum of this inner product mod square. Again, then taking the summation over j, we get summation j from 1 to infinity, I from 1 to infinity, this one. And this expression we are numbering by 1, and which is one of the things, one of the statement of the theorem that we want to prove, that this one is, let's say this is first, second, third equivalent to fifth one, and we want to prove all are equivalent. So that is equal to I from j from 1 to infinity, I from 1 to infinity. Now we can interchange the summation because the entries are all non-negative by using monotone convergence theorem. Screen sharing on top.
Slide has gone.
Oh. Sorry about that.
Anyway, go a bit slowly. You're going fast.
Okay. It's now visible.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, this is the statement we are making, that j from summation over first over j, then over I, and we can interchange the summation because the entries are non-negative. Then we can use monotone convergence theorem to interchange, and we justifies the statement that we interchange of summation is possible. Then if I take with respect to I, then with respect to j, and then property of adjointness will
Monotone
imply.
convergence theorem or Fubini you are using, I don't know.
We can use Fubini, but that is
Fubini
I
uses
want to.
monotone convergence theorem. That's correct. Yeah.
Yes, monotone directly follows. This is non-negative term.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Repeat
Yeah,
one.
this
Where you are using monotone convergence theorem?
yeah.
It is just Fubini. Just two summation. He's just interchanging it because they are all positive. Not Fubini, tonal theorem, if you want.
Yes, that's yeah. So this line, that 1 to 2, that I interchanging summation is possible. So I from 1 to infinity, j from 1 to infinity, and by property of adjointness fj t star of fi. And this is same as t star of fi fj. Now the summation, first summation is over j. So then now we are using that expression expansion of t star of fi with respect to the orthonormal basis fj. So then we get this expression. Again, we are using Parseval's theorem to get this expression, that t star of fi square summation over I. Now this quantity, this whole summation j, that is same as t star of fi norm of the square. So we have proved these two things, that screen is frozen. So we have proved this inequality, that this last one and the middle one, and we prove that the first one and the second one. So that will justify our all
What have
the
you proved? Sir, what have you proved?
we have in the statement of the theorem, we have proved the equality of last fifth one and
Fifth one.
second one.
Can you go to the
That
statement?
Statement, yeah, this is the
Three
statement.
statements I thought you, that fifth one.
Yes, there are fifth equalities.
No, where is the statement of the theorem? This is not.
Statement is not visible.
No. I see proof, start with proof or something. Where is the statement? This is the theorem.
We have proved that
Oh,
that
5 inequalities. Okay, this is equal to
yeah.
RF of I.
Again, the screen has gone. It's extremely sorry. Internet is not.
Is it because of internet problem or what?
Yes, there is internet is, weather is not good, so
Weather is not good.
there is raining, so there is internet problem. So that was the theorem, that there are 5 equalities.
Okay.
So we have proved that one, that t star fj summation is same as tfj.
Summation t star of j equal to tfj. Okay.
And
But
now
okay.
and now we prove
But
that
here you could have taken some other orthonormal basis. No, that will prove the first statement also. That's what I'm wondering. Why did you take the same fi there? I mean, see, you are expanding with some orthonormal basis. Okay.
Yes.
You could have expanded with a different orthonormal basis.
Yes.
So that would have proved the first statement itself. Right?
Yeah. That I am doing in the next. That
okay.
I'm.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Oh. Yes. In the next, we have done that
Sure. But I mean, okay. And my remark is you can do it now itself. Anyway, you can do it next. No problem.
Yes. So then we expand with respect to fi and we evaluate the value of t of ej. That will give that t of ej square is same as t ej fi, this quantity by Parseval's theorem. Now we take sum over j and we get the expression of this kind, that t of ej inner product fi. Now we use again the same argument to interchange the summation, and in the third step we summation over I from 1 to infinity and property of adjoint, that will ensure that this quantity is t star of fi norm square with now expanded with respect to ej. Then therefore we have obtained that I from 1 to infinity t star fi. So as we have proved, all these quantities are equal. That is
fine with everyone. Anyway, it is just Fourier expansion. You just take it to the other side and
yes.
then you prove it for T star. Once you prove, then I mean, something is summable with respect to one orthonormal basis. Then it is summable with any orthonormal basis for T star. And you use the statement, conjugate statement of T star. I mean, from T star, you can come to T again. So it's summable with respect to any other orthonormal.
So, the observation that we want to make here is that if t is, so this quantity from the that we have proved that equation that involves t and t star. So if one of them is finite, then other one is finite.
There are
and the sum and this equality and this is in there, and also that is independent of the orthonormal basis chosen. Again, sorry, sir. Sorry.
Weather is bad.
Yeah. It should not happen. It's not come. The statement is that if one of them is finite, then other one is also finite, and that proves that if T is a Hilbert-Smith operator, then T star is also an Hilbert-Smith operator. And this definition of the Hilbert-Smith operator is independent of the orthonormal basis. That was the purpose of this theorem. And next, let B2 denote the set of all Hilbert-Smith operator on H. Now, first we prove that it is a subspace and then of the bounded linear operator, and then we prove that it is an two-sided ideal. So, to prove that it is a subspace, we start with any Hilbert-Smith operator. Then just now we have justified that statement that we can take any orthonormal basis. So, if we take any orthonormal basis ci, then that's multiplying by ci c to t, we get this expression that c will be coming outside the summation, and therefore it will be finite if t is Hilbert-Smith operator. Therefore, Ct always belongs to B2H if T belongs to B2H. And next one is we want to prove that if T1 and T2 belongs to B2H, then T1 plus T2 belongs to B2H is an also Hilbert-Smith operator. So for T1, we take, is it for T1 and T2, we can take one fixed orthonormal basis so that both the summation are finite. At summation on with respect to I, T1 EI square is finite and T2 EI square is also finite. And then we can then to prove that T1 plus T2 is Hilbert-Smith, we evaluate T1 plus T2 at EI and take the norm square. That will be less than or equal to summation of this, that is by that inequality by triangle inequality. And next we use Minkowski's inequality to get this expression that is less than or equal to that norm of T square power half, and this one is less than power half. And if T1 and T2 are Hilbert-Smith, then both the quantities are finite, and therefore their summation is finite. Therefore, T1 plus T2 is in B2H. So we have proved that B2H is a subspace of TH. Now, therefore, since it's a linear subspace, and next we want to define a norm on that subspace. The norm is defined in the following way: you take any orthonormal basis for H, and we define by two Hilbert-Smith norm, that summation of I from 1 to infinity T of I square power half, and this is independent of the orthonormal basis, and it defines a norm because of this property that T equals to 0 if and only summation of can only call T of Ei equal to 0, and since Ei is an orthonormal basis, T will be a 0 operator. And the triangle inequalities is just to prove that this equality is the triangle, that it can be used to prove the triangle inequality. That equality, that T1 plus T2 Ei, and so if we, this one this is the definition of the Hilbert-Smith norm, T1 plus T2. So T1 plus T2 Hilbert-Smith is less than or equal to T1 norm and T2 norm. So from that equation 4, it follows that that defines a norm on the Hilbert-Smith space of Hilbert-Smith operator. So it's a non-linear space. Now we want to next proposition, we prove that the B2H is actually an ideal of BH. So first we prove that that T belongs to B2H, then that it dominates the operator norm, and these two operator norm are same. Operator, that Hilbert-Smith norm of T and the norm of T star are same, and that is greater than or equal to the operator norm of T. And next, that if one of the operator is Hilbert-Smith, then their composition of that two operator is Hilbert-Smith. For the first one, we have obtained in the theorem, we have proved in the theorem 1 that these two quantities are same, that summation T Ei square is same as summation T star Ei square. Therefore, their Hilbert-Smith norm are same. Now to prove that inequality, we want to start with an unit vector in H. So, and by extending the unit vector to an orthonormal basis of H, and this is possible by through Jones lemma, we can always find a maximal orthonormal set. So for whose first element is X. So if we compute the Hilbert-Smith norm with respect to this orthonormal basis, then we obtain that T2 equal to sum of 1 to infinity T of Ei square is greater than or equal to Tx. And this is true for any unit vector. Therefore, the operator norm is less than or equal to T2. This is the first one. And the second one is, suppose T is a Hilbert-Smith operator, then we want to prove that ST is Hilbert-Smith operator for any bounded linear operator S. So we start with an orthonormal basis with respect to which T is Hilbert-Smith, such that then we compute ST Ei square. The first inequality follows by the definition of that operator norm, and then we have this S operator norm square I from 1 to infinity T of Ei square. Since S is bounded, so this operator norm is finite, and since T is Hilbert-Smith, this summation is finite. Therefore, their product is finite. Therefore, ST is Hilbert-Smith, and their two norm is less than or equal, is bounded by this quantity. Now we want to prove that, and so we have proved that if S is any bounded operator, we multiply by an Hilbert-Smith operator from right side, we obtain a Hilbert-Smith. Now you prove that if we multiply from a left side, then also you obtain Hilbert-Smith operator. So for this, let S be any arbitrary bounded operator and T is Hilbert-Smith. So we want to prove that TS is Hilbert-Smith. So that will be equivalent to proving that TS star is Hilbert-Smith. But TS star is A star composition T star. And now S is bounded implies A star is bounded. And we have just proved that if you multiply from right side by an Hilbert-Smith operator, we obtain Hilbert-Smith operator. So A star composition T star is an Hilbert-Smith operator. Therefore, and this is equal to TS whole star. Therefore, TS is bounded. TS is Hilbert-Smith operator. And their norm, the 2 norm is less than or equal to A star T star 2 norm, which is less than A star operator norm T2 norm. Therefore, we have proved that B2H is a star closed two-sided ideal in BH. Now we prove that next we want to prove that every Hilbert-Smith operator is a compact operator. So for we first prove that set of all finite rank operator is dense in Hilbert-Smith operator. Let B00H denotes the space of all finite rank operator and B0H is the space of all compact operators. The next theorem, we want to prove that B008 is dense in B2H with respect to Hilbert-Smith norm. So, okay. There we need to use, we will be using singular value decomposition. But for a compact linear operator, without proof, we do not give a proof here. So we'll just state this theorem precisely. For a compact operator, for T, the singular value theorem states that there exist values S1, S2, so and so on. These are called singular values of the operator, and these are actually the eigenvalues of the operator T star T. And it can be proved that eigenvalues of T star T are always non-negative. So singular values are non-negative. And with respect to these values, T admits the decomposition of this form, that Tx can be written as Snt and inner product of x Sn Yn, where Xn and Yn are orthonormal basis for kernel of T parp and Yn is the basis orthonormal basis for kernel of T star parp. So this statement we will be this theorem we will be using in the proof.
You will not prove this statement?
No, without proof I mean.
Okay,
Repeat the definition of singular value.
Singular values are the eigenvalues of T star T.
Well, it should be proven, no? Somehow, if you are using it, it should be proven.
Okay. No, actually, yeah, it was proven before the after polar decomposition. So I thought that in the section.
That is true. Why not? But this is just for. I didn't prove it in the compactor. Anyway, I will prove it. Then I will prove it. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
This is something about compact operator. If we are using it, you should prove it. Otherwise, without using it, you should prove. Anyway, it's okay. I will prove it.
Okay. So first we prove that if T is a finite rank operator, then T is Hilbert-Smith. So if T is a finite rank operator, then we have observed that T star is also finite rank operator. And in that case, both range of T and range of T star are finite dimensional. Now we can in the theorem we that Xn and Yn are orthonormal basis for kernel of T parp and which is same as range of T star closure, and kernel of T star parp is same as range of T closure. Therefore, these are orthonormal basis for range of T and range of T star in case of finite rank operator. Therefore, they both are finite orthonormal basis. So in this case, in the case of finite rank operator, this summation in equation 5 is a finite sum. So therefore, in case our orthonormal basis for finite dimensional spaces, range of T. So now what is happening? So in case now we can extend the orthonormal basis for H.
The file is not yet visible.
Why it is not visible?
That's visible.
So that was the thing that that extend is a, since it's a finite set, and we extend this orthonormal basis to obtain an orthonormal basis for H. And if we get an orthonormal basis xm, then the that Txm equal to 0 for all m, for such that m is not equal to 1 to k. Where k1 x1 to xk are the orthonormal basis for range of T star. That and that this equal to 0, that follows from this expression 5, that Txm equal to, then this will be 0 if xm is not equal to any of the xi's. So this summation with respect to that orthonormal basis m from 1 to infinity is a finite sum, and that therefore this is finite, and this proves that T belongs to the space of Hilbert-Smith operator. Now we prove that any Hilbert-Smith operator can be approximated by finite rank operator. So let A be of B to H, and let this be any orthonormal basis for this. So that by definition this summation is finite. That summation EI square. And that by definition of convergence, there exists natural number m such that m from 1 to infinity AEI square is less than epsilon. Now we take the orthogonal projection. Orthogonal projection on the subspace of the this U1 to span of U1 to EM, and that is a finite dimensional space. So P is finite rank operator. Now we compose P with A. Then B, we call it B. Then B is also finite rank operator, and the Hilbert-Smith norm of A minus B is equal to AEI minus BEI, and BEI equal to AEI for I from 1 to M, because P of EI equal to EI from I from 1 to M, and otherwise it is 0. So this summation is actually runs from m plus 1 to infinity, which is less than epsilon. That already epsilon is was taken in such a way that is less than epsilon. Therefore, it can be approximated by a finite rank operator, and therefore B00H is dense in B to H with respect to Hilbert-Smith norm. Now, next we prove that every Hilbert-Smith operator is a compact operator. So we know that a compact operator are operator norm limit of finite rank operators. So if we take any Hilbert-Smith operator, there exists a sequence of finite rank operators that converges to 0 in Hilbert-Smith norm. Now that Hilbert-Smith norm dominates the operator norm, so that sequence of operator, finite rank operator, also converges to 0 in operator norm as well. Therefore, A is an operator norm limit of the sequence of finite rank operator, and hence A is compact. Next, we give one example for which the compact operator is not Hilbert-Smith. For this, we take H to be the separable Hilbert space L2, and A to be the diagonal operator AEN equal to 1 by root n EN. And since 1 by root n converges to 0, A is a compact operator that we have seen. But that summation n from 1 to infinity AN square is 1 by n summation. But that is a divergent series. And next, in the next proposition, we'll give a condition under which a compact operator is a compact operator is a Hilbert-Smith operator. In terms, the condition is given in terms of the singular values of T. So I will prove that the compact operator is a Hilbert-Smith if and only if that sum of the square of the singular values is finite. And in that case, if the condition is met, then that summation is same as the operator norm, Hilbert-Smith norm of T. So again, referring to if we look at the singular value decomposition, then we get Tx equal to this quantity, that Snt, this inner product of this. And from that, if we put Xn, Txn equal to Snt. and Tx equal to 0 if x is orthogonal to xn for all n. Now we again extend the basis, extend the orthonormal basis xn of kernel of T park to an orthonormal basis for h. By extending, we get that n from 1 to infinity Txn square equal to Snt square, because for all other terms that quantity will be 0. If we take any other element of the orthonormal basis which is not xn, which is not orthonormal basis for kernel of T park, then that will be 0. Therefore, this summation will be equal to a summation n from 1 to infinity Snt square. Now, if for T to be a Hilbert-Smith, this summation has to be finite, and this summation, that was our requirement, that this sum of this singular value square is finite. Is it all right? The screen is visible, sir. Okay.
Fine.
Okay. So if now we prove that now we see one application of the singular value decomposition, and we prove that space setable finite rank operator is the smallest non-zero two-sided ideal of, in the setable bounded linear operator.
Non-zero closed ideal, I believe. Non-zero,
No.
non-closed ideal. There can be dense ideals at the edge, D of H.
Okay. Now a closed
non-zero proper closed two-sided.
For closed, we will be using a closed. Then we prove that compact operator. That is the next theorem, that set of
compact operator. No, what is this B00?
B00 is a finite rank operator.
Finite rank operator. Oh, okay. Small. Oh, finite. Finite. Oh, okay. Smallest non-zero. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I had.
No. Compact operator, that was smallest closed two-sided.
Sorry.
So we'll prove that prove this first, that B00H is the smallest non-zero two-sided ideal. If H is non-zero, then B00H is already, we know that it's a two-sided ideal and non-zero. And now we prove that this is smallest. To prove that smallest, let H be any two-sided ideal in PH. So if J is not equal to 0, there exists a non-zero linear operator which takes a non-zero entry to a non-zero entry. That is, we call, if that is to be x naught and y naught, and such that T of x not equal to y naught. Okay. Now, idea of the proof is to show that every the first to prove.
Push.
Idea of the proof is to that we first prove that the finite rank operator is linearly spanned by the rank 1 operator of the form x bar tensor y, where that is defined to be equal to x bar tensor y evaluated at x prime equal to x prime x inner product y. And next, we prove that if any non-zero two-sided ideal contains all or rank 1 operator of this form. So if we can prove these two statements, then it will follow that that setable finite rank operator being the linear span that will be contained inside any non-zero two-sided ideal. So first we prove that the two-sided ideal contains all rank 1 operator of this form. So let x and y be non-zero element of H. We define a rank 1 operator x bar tensor y in this way, that x bar equal to so if we evaluate at we compute this thing, that y not norm to square to the power -2 and this one. So we'll get that is equal to T of this, and just computation, is trivial computation, I believe. So that is equal to Tx prime x inner product y. So, and we are using that T of x naught is as y naught. So that is same as that x bar tensor y evaluated at x naught. Now, since the J is a two-sided ideal, so we can compose a T from both side, both left side and right side, and these are rank 1 operators. So that is possible not, we do not need rank 1. That is a bounded linear operator, so we can compute, and therefore x bar tensor y belongs to J. Again, we appealing to the again we using the singular value decomposition. Any finite rank operator is of the form Sx equal to this one. Now the summation is finite, as we observed before. That is equal to Sns equal to x inner product xn and yn. Now that is that xn yn, that is nothing but xn bar tensor yn. And therefore B00H is linearly spanned by the operators of the form x bar tensor y. And since and all of these operator of the form here x and y are arbitrary, so every operator of this form belongs to J, and therefore B008 is subset of J. Yeah. Now we prove that B0H, the set of all compact operator, is the smallest is the only non-trivial closed ideal in VH. So first, it is a closed ideal because it is the closure of the finite rank operator. Now take if any J be any non-zero closed two-sided ideal, then by the previous proposition that since B008 is the smallest one, so that will be contained inside J. Now we take taking norm operator and closure in the operator norm, B0H subset of J. Therefore now we want to prove that any such operator is any such ideal is equal to V0H. So if we take any ideal that only consists of that it's a subset of B0H, that is it consists all the element are all of its elements are compact operators, then that will be contained inside B0H, and the equality follows. And if we can prove that any such ideal for which there exists at least one non-compact operator, then that ideal is equal to the whole ideal BH, then we will be done. So that is the idea of the proof. So we take any non-zero two-sided closed ideal which contains at least one non-compact operator. Now that is one of the characterization of compact operator, that a compact operator, the range of a compact operator does not contain any infinite dimensional closed subspace. So if T is non-compact, then its range does not contain any. If T is non-compact, then its range does contain one infinite dimensional closed subspace. Call it M. So and M being closed, infinite dimensional, M is also a separable Hilbert space. Now we take N to be equal to T inverse M intersection kernel of T part, and if we restrict T to T on N to M, then T is a bijective bounded linear operator. Now to prove that bijectiveness, we need to intersect with kernel of T part. That's why that term came from. And yeah, so we know that if it is a bijective bounded linear operator, then by open mapping theorem, its inverse is also bounded, and that is called S. S belongs to B, M, N. They are such that T S equal to identity on M. Now, since M is an infinite dimensional closed subspace, and that's a separable Hilbert space, so it has a countable orthonormal basis, and H also has a countable orthonormal basis. So we can find a bijection between the orthonormal basis from H to orthonormal basis of M, and that bijection can be is extended to an isometry of H. This is because of the property that one of the isometry has one of the characterization that it takes it takes an orthonormal basis to an orthonormal set. So And if we do this, then the orthonormal say, then the range of V will be M, and V will be an isometry. And therefore, if we can prove that, therefore, then clearly that V star V, if we compose TS from both sides from V star and V, then we'll get this will be an identity operator, because TS is identity on M, and then V star V will be identity. Yeah, so we do that. So that will be an identity operator in J, and which proves that that an identity element is contained inside the ideal, therefore it will be the whole ideal. Okay. And finally, we want to prove this characterization of Hilbert-Smith operator on L2 AV. So we'll first go to the theorem, and then we come back to this proposition. Yeah, this is the theorem that if K that all the Hilbert-Smith operator on L2 AV cross AV are can be obtained as an integral operator of
Have you proved Hilbert-Smith operators is a Hilbert space?
Yes. Yeah, that is, we can define an inner product on it, and that is a Hilbert space.
Yeah, but you have to.
I have not included the proof, so.
Okay. So,
Yeah,
okay, so
yes,
you want to do integral operator. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. No, somebody 2% I will, you thought that 2% will present this, so but
Yeah.
nobody else.
Nobody else opted, so you too.
That's why I thought that I conclude
Hey,
the
you could have
section.
done only half of it, then I could have done the remaining. You can, if you wish, you can stop.
No, I want to do this.
Okay, you finish whatever you have started. Okay.
Yes. So that we can prove that every integral Hilbert-Smith operator is obtained by a square integrable integral operator of a square integrable kernel. So, and we also prove the converse of this statement. So we first prove that every integral operator such that the kernel is square integrable, then that is an Hilbert-Smith operator. For this, we need this result that if U1, U2, this so on is an orthonormal basis for L2 AV, then this operator, then this functions defined by phi ij ht equal to uis ujt bar, that is an orthonormal basis for L2 AV cross AV. So we'll give a proof for this, but first we assume this and see the conclusion. So if we assume that this is an orthonormal basis for this space, that AB cross AB, then K, that K belongs to L2 this space. So K can be written as sum of ij, K ij, phi ij.
I mean, maybe you are going fast. Others are following this.
Oh.
Hello. Is everyone following it?
Yeah.
Okay. He is defining integral operator, and he is showing that the integral operator given by this tensors. These are also whatever this. You take one operator and another operator, and then this is what is called a tensor of things. They form a dense. Then he is taking orthonormal basis and show that is dense there. That's right. That's what you are doing, no?
Yes. No, that I'll do, but assuming this result, and with respect to that, with assuming that we prove first that it's a Hilbert-Smith operator, then I'll prove it.
Yeah. Okay, you have assumed it's orthonormal basis. Correct. Okay, yeah.
If I assume that it's an orthonormal basis, then
you have taken
we have
orthonormal basis ui, and then you are defining this k. I mean, you have taken this phi ij like that. Then you are proving. No, then you are taking a single k like that.
A single k was given. That was the kernel of the operator.
Then you take the decomposition like that.
That was the kernel. Then therefore we have a decomposition expansion of k in with respect to that phi ij.
And you are showing that the k equals to that decomposition. Okay.
Yes. So if we have that expansion, then by Parseval's theorem, we have that norm of this K2, that 2 norm, L2 norm equal to that sum of K phi ij square.
Correct. If you prove it's orthonormal basis, then this is true. Correct.
Yes, I'll prove it.
Hmm.
So now we want to compute this thing, that K of phi ij in terms of the operator, that in this inner product. We will want to compute this inner product. So to compute this is the definition of inner product in L2, KST and phi ij st bar. So first, that is that we can have this definition UJT UIS. So now the integration with respect to mu s mu t. Now we can use the Fubini's theorem to interchange the integral. And if we interchange the integral, then the inner integral will be with respect to ut, mu ut, and outer will be mu us. Now the inner integral by definition is auj, and then if we have that auj and that aujs, and now we have product taking the product with uys bar and d mu s. Then that is by definition a uj ui. So then this is true for all ij. Now then therefore in this
I'm sorry, what
summation,
is A?
a is the operator, integral operator.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So from the this thing that that K L2 norm of K, that was equal to that summation norm of inner product K phi ij square, but that we have proved equal to a uj ui square. Now in the beginning of the theorem, we proved that if this one, if it's Hilbert-Smith, that one of the equivalent condition is that in summation ij auj ui is finite with respect to any, or if there exists an orthonormal basis ui. So that by that condition, since k is in square integrable, so this quantity is finite. Therefore, this inner product auj ui square is finite. And this proves that A is a Hilbert-Smith operator. Now we want to prove the converse, that if A is Hilbert-Smith, every Hilbert-Smith operator on L2 looks like this. So for this, we have to define a kernel which is square integrable. So the definition of kernel is the defining relation that K inner product K phi ij equal to inner product A uj ui. So we'll define K with respect to in this way, where the coefficients are A uj ui, and we are taking the summation with respect to phi ij, orthonormal basis phi ij. Therefore, we take this. Therefore, if we can since it's an orthonormal basis, that we will get the equality here, that will be equal to some norm of a uj ui square. And since A is Hilbert-Smith, this quantity is finite. So that yeah, I should not write that is L2AB, but that is, if we compute this, that will be equal to that is a finite quantity, hence K belongs to the L2AB cross AB. Therefore, K is a square integrable. And we have this relation in our product K phi ij equal to A uj ui. Next, we define an operator with respect to this K, and that is defined as the same way, that we call it B, that Bx is equal to integration A to B Kst xt and d mu t. Now, if we compute as we did in the last case, that B uj ui equal to K phi ij, and which is also equal to, by definition of K, A uj ui, and this is true for all ij. So if we take that, if we expand further, that then we get B minus A uj equal inner product ui equal to 0 for all ij. Now we know that, and quadratic form determines the inner product, determines the operator. So we since ui is an orthonormal basis, so every x can be written as a sum of this summation sum of some x ui and ui, and another sum is summation x ui ui. Now we can use continuity of the inner product, and we get that for any x, that some inner product b minus ax with x equal to 0, and from that we can conclude that b equal to a. So we have proved that statement. So the one thing remains to prove is that this actually forms an orthonormal basis for L2AB. So for this, we'll now prove this statement. So suppose UI is an orthonormal basis for L2AB, then phi ij is defined in this way, is an orthonormal basis for L2AB cross AB. If it is by the from the definition of inner product on the space AB cross AB, and by the explicit definition of phi ij, it can be seen directly follows from the integration that inner product of phi ij pi kl equal to phi uik inner product ui uk and uj ul bar. And so if phi ij not equal to kl, so at least one of I are not equal to k or j not equal to l, and then so at least one of I not equal to k and j not equal to l, then we get that Eij is an orthonormal set in L2 AB cross AB. So to prove that it's an orthonormal basis, we need to prove that span of E closure is span of E is dense. So to prove that, by if we can prove that orthogonal complement of E is 0, then we will be done, because if E par P is 0, then E par and taken further the double perpendicular, that will be 0 par, and 0 par P is H, and now E par P equal to span of E closure. So we will be done if we can prove that its orthogonal complement is 0. So for this, we start with an element in the orthogonal complement of E, and therefore inner product F phi ij equal to 0 for all ij. Now corresponding to F, we define an operator K from L to AB to AB such that Kxs is the integral operator we are defined, but where the kernel is F. So again, we can by the previous computation, you can see that inner product F phi ij is same as this inner product, and which is again by using Fubini's theorem, by interchanging the integral, that is equal to k uj ui, and that k uj ui, that is same. Now if ui is an orthonormal basis for L2 AB, and phi that then phi and phi inner product of F phi ij equal to 0 for all ij, then this quantity, that inner product k uj ui, this is equal to 0 for all ij, but ui is an orthonormal basis for L2 AB. So again, by the same argument, every x it can be written as summation of ui, summation of some inner product, summation of some ci ui, and by using the continuity of inner product, we get kx equal to 0 for all x in L2 AB. And since quadratic form is 0, so that is we get kx x equal to 0 for all x, and that proves that kx. Yes.
That is not actually, you have used it, but that is not actually the quadratic form. Quadratic form is when uj is same as ui. I mean, it is the ux. This is the bilinear form. Okay. This is quadratic form is for self-adjoint operator. If the quadratic form itself is equal, then they are equal. Okay, so it's just the name.
Yes, I'm saying that
quadratic form is for uxx, whatever. If you have the same thing, then that is what is quadratic.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I'm saying that
I understood what you are saying. Okay,
Yes.
you are correct what you are saying. I'm just saying the name.
Name here. This is not quadratic, but kxx, I am saying that that will also be 0.
Sure. Correct.
That if kx is 0, that is true for all x. That's a 0 operator. Then that will be proving that from that we can conclude that f equals to 0. That the kernel of that operator must be 0, and this proves that the perpendicular is 0, which proves that this is an orthonormal basis for AG cross AG. Yeah, that was the.
Okay.
That's it.
Questions? Okay, all these things are contained in Sundar's book, I think. So you can read it, or you can read any book. You can search in the internet. There are too many notes available. So I assume there is no question. So I will end the session. Okay, thank you.
Sorry for the trouble that.
Yeah, no problem. It's okay. Okay, bye. I will end, okay?